You know your zodiac sign, maybe your moon, maybe your rising. But have you ever wondered where those signs came from? Long before they became personality types, they were stories, sacred ones. Each one carried the face of a god, and behind every symbol, there was a myth shaping the soul beneath it. Aries once marched into battle with Aries. Pisces carried the trace of sea gods and sacred endings. And in every sign, something ancient is still alive, a force, an archetype, a memory. In this video, we'll uncover the forgotten gods behind the signs and the mythical origins of the zodiac itself, not to predict your future, but to reveal the ancient story already written in your soul. So stay with me, because once you see the zodiac for what it really is, you might start seeing yourself differently too. If you're drawn to the stars not for answers, but for meaning, subscribe. This is Beyond Mythology. When people think of astrology, they often imagine predictions, horoscopes, star signs, something to tell you who to date or what kind of Tuesday you'll have. But that's not where it began. Long before it appeared in magazines or memes, astrology held a deeper role. It was sacred, not a tool for guessing the future, but a way of remembering something older than time. In ancient civilizations, the sky wasn't background scenery. It was alive. To the Babylonians, the stars were the eyes of the gods, watching, moving, speaking. They noticed patterns in the heavens that echoed shifts on earth. A king rose, a river flooded, a war ended. They weren't just observing the sky, they were reading it. They charted the movements of the planets with astonishing precision, not for science alone, but to understand the hidden will behind the visible world. For them, the planets carried presence. Each one had a personality, a power, a message. They weren't dead matter. They were divine forces in orbit. As their system evolved, it shaped nearly every culture that followed. The Egyptians aligned their temples to stars like Sirius, believing these celestial moments marked the messages of gods. Thoth, keeper of time and knowledge, was tied to these rhythms. Isis and Osiris were more than mythic stories. They were part of a cosmic cycle that pulsed through the heavens. The Greeks took this further. They saw the zodiac as a kind of divine narrative etched across the night. The word zodiac comes from zoidiakos kyklos, the circle of little animals. But behind the animals were ideas. Each constellation was a fragment of a larger myth, a flash of energy that made the invisible visible. Astronomy and theology weren't separate. Looking up was a sacred act. The sky became a stage where the gods revealed their roles, and humanity played along below. The zodiac didn't shrink people into types. It offered a structure to explore meaning, not just in the stars, but in ourselves. To those early astrologers, the sky wasn't ticking like a machine. It moved like ritual, and the planets didn't drift without purpose. They followed ancient choreography. Each shift meant something. Each sign pointed to a story. Each orbit traced a cycle of life, death, and the return of what never truly left. Astrology, even now, isn't about personality boxes. It remains what it always was, a symbolic map of the soul. Each zodiac sign is more than a personality sketch. It's a doorway, a living echo of ancient forces. Behind every sign, there's a myth, and behind that myth, a god. These weren't random assignments. They emerged through centuries of resonance, where people noticed that certain kinds of energy kept showing up together, in stories and in the sky. Take Aries, for example. It's not just bold or impulsive. It carries the fire of Ares, the Greek god of war. And in older traditions, it was linked to Martu, a Mesopotamian storm god. This is the archetype of the initiator, the one who leaps into battle, into life, into risk. It's raw, fearless, primal. Taurus, by contrast, roots itself, associated with Aphrodite, the goddess of sensuality and desire, and with Hathor, the Egyptian cow goddess of fertility and music. This isn't just about being stubborn, it's about honoring the body, the earth, the pleasure of existence. Gemini is Quicksilver, tied to Hermes, the divine messenger, but also to tricksters, shapeshifters, and liminal guides. It's the mind in motion, thought as movement, communication as magic. Cancer holds the mysteries of origin and protection. It mirrors the energy of Artemis, wild and protective of the vulnerable, and Isis, the mother magician of resurrection. This is the sign of sacred memory and emotional depth that shields what's precious. Leo is radiant, the domain of Helios, Apollo, and even Sekhmet, the solar lioness. It's about divine fire, the light that creates, inspires, and sometimes burns. Virgo is often misunderstood, linked to Demeter, goddess of the harvest, and to Astrea, the virgin of justice. But this virgin wasn't about sexual purity. It meant self-possession, sovereignty, and sacred service. This is the priestess, the healer, the one who purifies. Libra seeks balance but not passively. It holds the archetype of Themis, goddess of divine law, and Ma'at, the Egyptian embodiment of truth and cosmic order. It's not just harmony, it's the justice that holds the universe together. Scorpio dives deep, associated with Hades, ruler of the underworld, but also Sekhmet again in her destructive form, and even Kali, the Hindu goddess of death and rebirth. Scorpio is the archetype of transformation, where life and death are lovers, and nothing stays the same. Sagittarius shoots toward meaning. It's linked to Chiron, the wounded healer, and to Apollo, the god of prophecy. This is the seeker, the teacher, the bridge between wildness and wisdom. Capricorn climbs, ruled by Kronos, the god of time, and by Pan, the horned spirit of wild nature and hidden fears. This sign is often seen as cold, but its truth lies in structure, discipline, and a deep calling to ascend from chaos into order. Aquarius rebels. It channels Prometheus, who stole fire for humanity, and Uranus, the sky god who births disruption. This is the sign of future thinkers, rule breakers, and divine disobedience. And Pisces. It flows between worlds. It carries the essence of Dionysus, god of ecstasy and transcendence, Poseidon, god of the deep, and even Yemanjah, the oceanic mother of Afro-Brazilian traditions. It's not about being lost, it's about remembering we're more than we seem. These gods didn't disappear. They were just dressed in new language, converted into traits and tendencies. But the myth is still there, whispering beneath every birth chart, waiting to be remembered. Why did so many ancient cultures look to the sky to understand themselves? What made them believe that planets and stars had something to say about the human soul? They weren't following superstition. They were responding to something deeper, a symbolic connection between the heavens and the human experience. To them, the sky acted like a mirror, not a force that controlled events, but a reflection of the same patterns shaping life on Earth and within the psyche. They believed the universe wasn't only physical, it carried meaning, woven into its movements, its rhythms, its cycles. This became the foundation of what we now call as above, so below. A hermetic principle suggesting that the structures we see in the cosmos have their counterpart in the soul. In other words, when the sky moves, something in us responds, not out of submission, but because we're part of the same symphony. Imagine the stars as notes in a song, and the psyche as an instrument that resonates with that melody. The alignment doesn't force action, it awakens recognition. That's what gives astrology its power. It doesn't have to push or predict. It simply reveals what's already stirring beneath the surface. And that's also why mythology has always mattered. Human beings have never just needed stories to pass time. We've needed them to explain what reason alone can't express. The things we feel, the drives we don't fully understand, the invisible truths we live by. Astrology works the same way. It's a symbolic language, one built from archetypes, timeless forms that describe the patterns of human life. Carl Jung recognized this. He saw astrology not as fantasy, but as a psychological system rooted in the collective unconscious. He believed that signs and planets were expressions of forces we all carry. They influence how we relate, how we struggle, how we grow. Take Aries, often called bold or impulsive. But beneath that is a more ancient instinct, the will to begin. Libra might be described as diplomatic, but it holds the tension of opposites, the hunger for inner and outer balance. These signs aren't definitions, they're ways of seeing yourself more clearly. Astrology isn't here to reduce anyone to a category. It offers a framework to recognize energies we already sense, but may not have known how to name. It doesn't tell you who you are. It invites you to look inward and notice what's alive. The stars, in that sense, become reflective, less about fate, more about awareness. And the more we learn to read them symbolically, the more clearly we begin to recognize who we are and who we're becoming. The zodiac isn't just a personality chart. It's a path, a journey that unfolds in cycles, and whether you've noticed or not, you've been walking it your whole life. Astrology wasn't always used to describe who you are. In many ancient and esoteric traditions, it pointed to where you are within a much greater unfolding. The 12 signs don't simply define types of people. They mark stages of transformation, phases in a spiral that repeats across lifetimes, relationships, and inner shifts. It begins with Aries, the spark, the birth of motion, pure instinct, the soul entering the world in action. Then comes Taurus, rooting that energy into form, learning how to feel, to build, to inhabit the body. Gemini brings the split, thought, dialogue, duality, the beginning of questions, curiosity, contradictions. Cancer turns inward. It remembers the womb, the home, the emotional roots that shape us. Leo rises with fire again, but now it seeks expression. The performer, the creator, the self becoming visible. Virgo refines that expression. It strips away excess, serves something higher, and learns precision. Libra steps into relationship. Here we face the mirror, balancing self and other, learning justice through exchange. Then comes Scorpio and the descent. The mask cracks, truths surface. Something ends, so something else can begin. Sagittarius emerges from that fire, a seeker with new eyes, longing for meaning beyond the ashes. Capricorn climbs. It constructs, endures, and shapes the raw material of life into legacy. Aquarius disrupts the system. It brings the memory of what could be, breaks patterns, not to destroy but to liberate. And finally, Pisces. The ocean, the surrender. The self dissolves into the whole again, an ending that is always a beginning. This isn't just myth, it's initiation. Ancient mystery schools used the zodiac as a spiral of inner development. Each sign was a gate, a challenge, a teaching, a mirror. Astrology wasn't there to define anyone, but to awaken what was already stirring beneath the surface. Because this journey doesn't happen once, we live it again and again, each time from a different angle. You may have been born under a single sign, but you'll walk through all 12 before you're through. The zodiac is not a box. It's a path of return, one that brings you back to who you've always been, beneath the personality, beyond the name. If the zodiac signs describe the path, the planets reveal the players. Each one represents a living force, archetypal, divine, and present within you. Together, they shape the inner drama that unfolds through your life. Let's start at the center, the sun, the core of identity. It's not just light, it's presence. It reflects Apollo, the god of clarity, artistry, and conscious will. In astrology, the sun shows how you shine, your essence, your purpose, your heroic center. The moon holds a different kind of power. She carries memory, mood, and the emotional undercurrent of your life. She echoes Artemis, goddess of the night and guardian of the wild. The moon governs your inner world, your instincts, your longing for safety, your ancestral imprints. It's the part of you that moves quietly beneath the surface. Mercury is the messenger, mind, language, movement. Like Hermes, he travels between realms, bridging thought and speech, logic and intuition. In your chart, Mercury shows how you think, learn, and communicate. Venus draws you in. She rules beauty, harmony, desire, and connection. She mirrors Aphrodite, goddess of sacred attraction and sensuality. Venus speaks to how you love, what you value, and where you find pleasure and grace. Mars ignites. He rules action, courage, tension, and sometimes chaos. Linked to Aries, god of war and raw instinct, Mars shows how you pursue, protect, assert, and move toward what you want. It's your inner fire, the voice that says, "I'm going after this." Jupiter expands. It's the seeker, the philosopher, the visionary king. He channels Zeus, bringer of blessings and ruler of the wide sky. Jupiter governs growth, your capacity for faith, purpose, generosity, and wisdom. Saturn focuses. He rules time, limits, responsibility, and the long game. He carries the weight of Kronos, the god who measures and demands. Where Saturn lands, life asks more from you. But it also offers a chance for structure, maturity, and mastery. Now come the outer planets, slower in orbit but deeply transformative. Uranus disrupts. Named after the primordial sky god, he rules awakening, rebellion, innovation. He breaks what's rigid to make space for what's alive. Neptune dissolves. He carries the dreamlike currents of Poseidon and governs mystery, imagination, illusion, and spiritual longing. He lifts the veil between worlds, or deepens it, depending on how you meet him. Neptune stirs the mystic, the artist, the empath, the visionary. Pluto transforms. He brings the power of Hades, ruler of the underworld. Where Pluto moves, things die, and from that death, something more authentic can emerge. It's destruction with intention, alchemy in motion. These planets aren't static points. They're archetypes moving through you. Each one carries a god's voice, and together they compose the divine symphony of your inner cosmos. After all this, one thing becomes clear. Astrology was never created to confine you. Its purpose is deeper, to help you learn how to read the hidden language of your own life, not to predict, but to perceive. Astrology isn't a rigid system. It's a language, a symbolic code that speaks through myth, motion, and metaphor. And like all sacred languages, it doesn't follow a straight line. It spirals, it echoes, it reflects. Your birth chart isn't a fixed sentence. It's a mandala, a symbolic snapshot of the sky when you arrived, and within it, the imprint of the forces you came carrying. It doesn't lay out a future. It shows you what's alive now, what's moving through you, what patterns are active, waiting to be seen, engaged, embodied. Ancient astrologers weren't obsessed with what will happen. They were listening for meaning, for the deeper invitations woven into each planetary shift. Because every sign, every planet, every transit is a chance to realign, to participate in your own unfolding. Like myth, astrology isn't built on facts alone. It reveals meaning through timing, symbols, cycles, and resonance. The planets don't dictate, they signal, they mirror back the tides already rising within. Not fate, but pattern. Not control, but consciousness. When you learn to read that mirror, you begin to move through life with more clarity, more presence, more rhythm with who you actually are. Because astrology doesn't claim, "This will happen to you." It asks, what part of you is waking up, and how will you respond? The sky becomes a poem, and you become its reader. And maybe then you realize, the zodiac was never just about what's coming. It's about what's already inside you, waiting to be remembered. You are not your sign. You are the myth moving beneath it. And that myth is alive. It moves as you move, it grows as you grow, it waits for you to remember it, and then to live it. The zodiac was never meant to box you in. It was meant to open a path through the archetypes of existence and into the soul that chose to walk them. So now ask yourself, which god lives in your sign? Which archetype whispers in your choices, in your dreams, in your fears? Which part of this story felt like it was already yours before you even heard it? Let it speak below, and let others find a piece of their own myth in your reflection, because this isn't the end, it's the beginning. And if this journey echoed something deep within you, like, share, and subscribe. This is Beyond Mythology,